I'm Maxine. Thanks for tuning in. Today I am here to review All About Love by Bell Hooks. I'm really excited for this review and stay tuned to hear more. This book comes highly recommended. I feel like I've always seen it on top reading lists. And this book has been out for a while, so I'm sure you've come across it in a list or somewhere online you've seen it. I think it got even more traction last year in 2020, right around the chaos and political unrest and protests right after the George Floyd murder, and shortly after that, Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. I think during those moments, there were a lot of radical reading lists circulating, and I saw this book on a lot of those lists, and that was kind of my push over the edge to read this book, because looking at the title, All About Love, I was thinking, how is this radical? What about love could be radical? And I just wanted to know what all the fuss was about. I had also been introduced to some of Bell Hooks' writing in college, but only excerpts. All of those excerpts were amazing, but for some reason, I was never able to just like fully read one of her works, and I'm so glad I was able to read this. Okay, so before I get into the review, I want to give a little background on the author, Bell Hooks, also known as Gloria Jean Watkins. Bell Hooks is her pen name, and she got that pen name from her maternal great-grandmother. I love that ancestral connection, and also just like, what a cool name, Bell Hooks, you know? So yeah, Bell Hooks is an African-American author. She's a feminist, a social activist, and the list just goes on. She's one of the leading women in social theory analysis, I would say, and she's just written countless books. I think she's written over 30 books about feminism, gender, race, class, inequality. The list just goes on and on. So she's definitely one of the movers and shakers of our century. She's still alive. She's in her 60s. I think it's amazing to be aware of the people making change and promoting knowledge that are alive and around us. It's great to celebrate people who have come before us, but celebrate the living artists and thinkers as well. And Bell Hooks is one of many. All right, so let's talk about All About Love. This book is about love, simply. It's about how society has engaged with love, how we define love, how we find identity in love, and also the complications of love, not only in romantic relationships, but familial relationships, and how these different concepts unfold in our lives and how they affect how we operate with different people and interact with each other. In the preface of this book, Bell Hooks talks about how the world is becoming more and more loveless. There's just more and more language around love not being important, love not being real. I don't need love. What's love got to do with it? And this book was published in the year 2000, but I still feel like in 2021, it's so relevant. And I really say all the time that this book is required reading. It really just, after reading this book, I felt like my mind was more open to how to interact with others in ways that I never really thought about. I never thought about society's impact on how I think about love, how I think about what I deserve, and how I treat others. And this book just really will provoke you to change your perspective and really think deeper about something that seems really simple, love. Like, we all know what love is, right? Or do we really, you know? I think after this book, you'll find that you don't know as much as you think. And there's so much more to love. It's complicated. This book covers a lot, but I want to focus on Bell Hooks' definition of love and how she came to that. And I also want to talk about love in mass media. These are two topics of many that are throughout the book, but they were the ones that really stood out to me. So the first chapter of this book is called Clarity, Give Love Words. And in this chapter, she talks about defining love. And I really enjoyed this chapter because it's about, in society, love, an understanding of love would be so much simpler if we had a great working definition. I feel like in movies and television and music, when people describe love, they're like, oh, like, you'll know it when you see it, or it's just this feeling. People aren't able to really put words to it. And in this chapter, she breaks down why that isn't productive to us, and how, because we lack a definition, it's hard to perform love, and it's hard to actually love when you don't really know what love is. So in this first chapter, she talks about her search for a working definition of love, and she ultimately finds it in a self-help book from the 70s, and I'm gonna read it right now. This is on page 4. I spent years searching for a meaningful definition of the word love, and was deeply relieved when I found one in psychiatrist M. Scott Peck's classic self-help book, The Road Less Traveled, first published in 1978. Echoing the work of Erich Fromm, he defines love as the will to extend one's self for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Explaining further, he continues, love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love. Since the choice must be made to nurture growth, this definition counters the more widely accepted assumption that we love instinctually. I don't know about you, but I've never really thought that deeply about what love means. I think for me, love is about like supplying physical needs or nurturing or concern for one another. But I've never thought like, what sentence would I form to define love? Like, what does it really mean to me? So this idea that love is to invest in the nurturing and growth of someone, I think that's really powerful. And to have a simple definition makes it even easier to understand or to classify what's love and what's not love. And we've normalized a lot of toxic traits that are love, but it's really not. And this book goes into that even deeper in further chapters, but I'll say for now, like, just setting that foundation of a definition, she goes even more into how the lack of a definition attributes to a lot of the incorrect displays of love that are so commonly seen in society. She goes on even further to talk about the fact that love is a mixture of several ingredients. It's not just one thing. So I'm going to read you what she says about that. This is on page 5. To truly love, we must learn to mix various ingredients: care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, and trust, as well as honest and open communication. Learning faulty definitions of love when we are quite young makes it difficult to be loving as we grow older. I couldn't agree more. She's done it again, and I feel like I have a lot of these aha moments reading this book, even rereading it. A lot of us have grown accustomed to this dysfunctional relationship with love and not thinking why. And this book pushes you to think why. It pushes you to think about your relationships, why you act a certain way, and why others interact with you a certain way. Something I really enjoyed about this book was the way it was written was so approachable. I feel like in a lot of social theory books, some of the writers who are scholarly end up writing a little too high level and theoretical to really understand the concepts. In this book, Bell Hooks does a phenomenal job of giving several examples of every principle she's talking about, and she just writes it in a way that I would say most people can understand. She just writes it in a very approachable manner. It's not in a, there's not an accusatory tone. It's very accepting, and I just love that. To me, some social theory books take themselves too seriously, but this book is not that. It's approachable. It's truly for everyone, and that's why I really enjoyed reading it. I've gotten at least 3 of my friends to read this book, and they've gotten their friends to read this book, and I feel like it's kind of like the sisterhood of the traveling book. But even on Twitter, I see a lot of people starting to read this book, and I feel like now is the time. Like, this is your time. Buy this book. Do yourself a favor. Buy this book, 2021. You will not regret it, I promise. To close this review, I'm going to leave you with a small excerpt from the preface of this book that gives a great introduction, in my opinion, to what this book is like. I awakened from my trance state and was stunned to find the world I was living in. The world of the present was no longer a world open to love. And I noticed that all around me, I heard testimony that lovelessness had become the order of the day. I felt our nations turning away from love as intensely as I felt love's abandonment in my girlhood. Turning away, we risk moving into a wilderness of spirit so intense we may never find our way home again. I write of love to bear witness both to the danger in this movement and to call for a return to love. Redeemed and restored, love returns us to the promise of everlasting life. When we love, we can let our hearts speak. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you feel encouraged to read this book, possibly. If you end up reading it, let me know. If you've already read it, let me know that as well. I will have more reviews to you coming soon, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.